Hello and welcome to Auto Today. My name is Dipayan and you're joining us on the sunny beaches of Goa as always for another compact sedan, and this time it's the Desire's biggest rival, the brand new third generation of the Honda Amaze. But before we tell you what it's like on the inside, how many features it has, how it's like to drive, let's run you through the design. Cue the montage. Now talk about design, and when you compare the Dzire and the Amaze, where the Dzire went more svelte in this new generation, the Amaze has gotten boxier with those sharp cuts at the front end and at the rear. When we'll get to the rear, I'll show you. But it has got design elements that now link it to the rest of the family, with elements from the city and the Elevate now melding into the new Amaze, which makes it much better linked to the rest of the Honda family on sale in India right now. Now, right up front, you're going to get these LED projector headlamps with the DRL signature that runs along the top. You also get a chrome strip that runs along the length of the bonnet. And during the daytime, it does look like the DRLs meld into each other across the bonnet, which is a pretty cool and premium feature. And of course, you get this large hexagonal grille, which has been blacked out. Now, again, this is a little bit of a tip of the hat to the Elevate. And look a little further down and you have the fog lamps, which are LEDs as well. And they look a lot similar to the units that we've seen on the Honda City. Now, overall, it's a nice cohesive front end. It is slightly boxy, but it gives it that distinct styling that makes it instantly recognizable as the new generation of the Amaze from the moment it enters the frame. Now, let's step to the side. Now step to the profile, and the most prominent design element, of course, is this shoulder line that runs along the body. Now it's a really nice strong shoulder line in the metal, and it gives a very cohesive sense to the design, which is otherwise minimalist on the side and continues that boxy theme that we've seen on the front end. Now you do get 15-inch alloy wheels in dual tone, but I do wish they filled out the arches slightly better. And also you get chrome garnishes for the door handles, and although you don't see it on this side, you get a camera on that side for a blind spot monitor, which is a segment first feature on the Amaze. Now, matching all those sharp perpendicular lines on the front end is a similarly sharp and perpendicular rear end, which ends pretty abruptly. If it wasn't for this line that runs along the boot lid, that kind of gives it the sense that there is a boot lip spoiler, although it is bodywork. It's a really nicely integrated piece, and it helps give the rear end some proportions other than that boxy feeling as it ends sharply right here. Now, of course, the party piece at the rear are these two LED tail lamps, which you wouldn't be wrong if you had said that you've seen them before, because they're a lot like the units that we've seen on the Honda City. And it is something that you might mistake especially when you see this car at night. Now, under this boot lid, of course, is a 416-litre boot, which is a segment beater. So it has about 40 more liters than its closest competitor, and that's saying something, which means that you can pack more than a weekend's worth of luggage easily into the boot and still have plenty of place on the inside. Now step on to the inside and the cabin of this new third generation of Amaze, and it gets a whole new design. But this time the design doesn't focus as much as on aesthetic as it does on increasing the space on the inside. But from a visual perspective, you do get two tones, primarily beige and offset with black on the inserts and on the dash. Now you do get an 8-inch infotainment system, which is compatible for wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. And you also get a semi-digital instrument cluster with an analog speedometer. But on the left side, you have a completely digital tachometer and a MID cluster, which looks pretty neat. And I love the way that the digital tachometer actually is an analog round set dial, which kind of keeps the aesthetic of the analog alive with adding the functionality of a digital meter. Now, aside from that, you do get a wireless charger, you get two cup holders in the front, you get a small cubby here and a place to store your phone. You also get plenty of place on the door pockets, and while the plastics are a little hard to touch, they aren't really badly built and the car seems put together nicely. The buttons are nicely damped and they have a really nice touch and feel to them when you use them. The wireless charger also is pretty effective, and you get two USB ports up front for charging. Now the infotainment system is paired to a 6-speaker unit, which is not the best sound in the world but is adequate, so to speak. Now though, let's step to the rear and the second row and see how much has changed back there. Now this generation of the brand new Honda Amaze is based on a modified version of the City's platform, which should mean that there is more space on the inside, and that especially on the second row. Now the first thing you are going to notice is that it is pretty wide, and sitting 3 abreast should not be a problem. I still have a little bit of space on my right, so I can move a little, and 3 abreast should not be a very big problem. Now where it does lose out though is on headroom, which despite my 6-foot frame is just about touching the roofliner, which is slightly uncomfortable. The knee room though, even though the front seat is adjusted to my seat position, there is still some knee room thanks to this cutout on the seat, which makes it pretty comfortable. You also get a armrest in the back with 2 cup holders, which is very, very useful. You get a few cubbies in the door lining. And of course you get AC vents. What I do like is the fact that the AC vents aren't as low as they are on the Dzire. They're slightly higher up, which means that it will be better at cooling the second row of seats, which should make it slightly more comfortable. Now the driver's side does not get a seat pocket, but the passenger side does for some storage. What is slightly weird though is the fact that the parcel tray at the back doesn't really have much meaningful storage, and that's because they now give room for this airbag mechanism, and the Amaze comes with 6 airbags as standard, which is a pretty significant offering considering that it starts at 8 lakhs. But as far as the cabin goes, it is plenty spacious in terms of at least width and knee room. It could have used a little bit more headroom, but overall it is a pretty nice place to be. The seats are slightly firmer than I would have liked, and there aren't any adjustable headrests. But that said, it is pretty comfortable considering the price offering of this package. And now you're joining me behind the wheel of the 3rd generation of the Amaze, and mechanically there isn't a lot that's really different from the previous generation. You still get a 1.2 litre 4-cylinder motor that makes about 90 PS or 90 bhp and 110 Nm of torque. Now the motor in itself is very refined, and there is barely any NVH from the motor that makes it into the cabin, despite there being very little damping under the hood. And that speaks volumes about just how refined this Honda motor is. Now, it is a little flatter than one would have liked. The power delivery is a little linear, and that means there's an almost flat run to 6,500 RPM where the red line is. It's not the most engaging motor, but it is a nice motor to drive. Now, presently we're driving the 5-speed manual, but it is also available with a CVT automatic. Now, as far as the manual is concerned, again, it is a pretty nice gearbox to drive, and it is pretty slick to use, although one could have used a slightly lighter clutch, especially for those long stints in city traffic. This one is a little strong on the springs, and it feels like there's a constant load against you. Now, the major talking point on this new generation of the Amaze though is, the addition of the new ADAS features, which means there is a camera sensor in front, and you get lane depart assist, lane keep assist, and adaptive cruise control, which really comes in handy when you're spending long hours on the highway. Now, this new generation of the Amaze again uses a modified version of the City's platform with new materials, means more high-strength steel, meaning less flex when you're driving it, and especially on direction changes. But what really stands out from the chassis perspective is just how smooth this ride is. Whether you're driving over bad roads or speed breakers or potholes, the damping is set up absolutely perfectly, and most of the time there is almost no transfer to the cabin, and that speaks volumes about that Honda quality that we know and love. Now though, let's hop from this car to the automatic and tell you what that's like to drive. Now, like the Honda City, the Amaze 2 gets a CVT gearbox with paddle shifters, which makes driving kind of nice. But this is a CVT at the end of the day, and it's paired to a pretty underpowered engine, which means that there is going to be a very pronounced rubber band effect. Now, the paddle shifters are a nice addition for when you're driving in manual mode, but it is still just an addition and doesn't really add to the driving experience as such. One of the really cool things though is the fact that it does have the paddle shifters, which makes it slightly more engaging to drive. But that said, there is still a rubber band effect, which is not as pronounced as before, especially off the lines at low speed, but it still exists. That said, the engine and gearbox pairing is otherwise pretty smooth, and in-gear roll-ons, as long as they're not too spirited, are pretty nice, and the Honda Amaze moves through the speed range quite easily and quite smoothly. Thank you so much for tuning in to our video review of the new third generation of the Honda Amaze. If you like this video, don't forget to smash that like button because it means so much for us and the growth of our channel. And also, if you haven't subscribed to the Auto Today channel, this is your chance to do that now. Now, as for this new third generation of the Amaze, well, it comes to a compact sedan battle that is really heating up, but it comes prepared with a whole lot of features, a whole lot of more space on the inside, and well, the prices too are pretty competitive considering that the base model starts at 8 lakhs and the top model goes up to 10.9 lakhs with the CVT. But that said, you can still have a manual version of the top model under 10 lakhs, which is about 1,20,000 cheaper than the CVT. That means this is the first car in India to have ADAS under 10 lakh rupees, which is a pretty big feature to have at this price point. Now, in terms of the engine, it's got a 4-cylinder engine, full size. It makes pretty decent power at 90 bhp. It's got plenty of space on the inside. It's got a pretty large boot. So overall, the Amaze does bring the fight to the mainstream market leader, which is the Maruti Suzuki Dzire. Let us know in the comments which one you would pick, and we leave a link for our Dzire review so you can check that out too. And that's it from us. This is Didi signing off.